Welcome to the Bookers Alliance podcast, where we hold the pencil and the pencil is power. Coming at you right now is your host, Marky Mark, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Donaldson. Join us as we discuss the ever-changing landscape of professional wrestling. So hang on tight, you jabronis, and enjoy the ride. All right, welcome in, everybody. Thank you for joining today's episode of the Bookers Alliance podcast. Today, we are going to talk about celebrities in wrestling. Frank, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good today. I'm excited for this topic today. We're going to talk about the mainstream superstars.
All right, so Frank's feeling good today.
All right.
So this is a topic that's man, it's been around as long as we've been fans. We've seen celebrities come, we've seen them go, we've seen them get involved in the match, we've seen them be in the corner, we've seen them announce, we've
seen them actually wrestle it,
general managers,
lead the match. We've seen them fail, we've seen them fall.
We've seen them host the game show. Bob Barker was
there. You go. Yeah, I mean, celebrities in wrestling have been going hand in hand throughout my entire life, plus some. So
yeah, but we want to kick it off maybe talking about the very first one to ever kind of get the party started, so to speak, and that was Andy Kaufman.
The late Andy Kaufman, Latka from the Taxi. I mean, that guy loved wrestling, and you could see it, and he was willing to put his body on the line to get it over. I mean, he made wrestling mainstream. Jerry the King Lawler was sitting on David Letterman's show. I mean, I know talk shows now, nightly talk shows now in 2023 don't really have the same weight as they used to. But I mean, in the 80s and the 70s, that's how you knew who was up and coming. That's who you knew was an actual star, is when you saw them roll out on Johnny Carson, David Letterman, soon to be Jay Leno, things like that. When these guys got on that show, they had credibility. So it was exciting to see. And I mean, had it not been for Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler definitely wouldn't have been the wrestler that was on there first. I mean, we might have had to wait another 10 years until Hulk Hogan got to that kind of mainstream level to see that type of crossover.
It's funny because you can't think of either one of their names without thinking of the other one.
No, absolutely not in the vein of wrestling.
Yeah, they're linked. I mean, it's how it happened. Kaufman staying true to the character that he was portraying, phenomenal. He just had that ability to what they call today method acting.
Yeah,
he just got in there with both feet.
As Ric Flair called it, live the gimmick. That man lived the gimmick. When he said injured, he was injured.
Yeah.
I heard a story Jerry Lawler told about after their wrestling match that Andy Kaufman went to the hospital and he wasn't injured, but he went to the hospital and stayed in there like 3 days. And, Lawler and them said, hey, you got to get out of here. And Kaufman said, no, I'll pay the hospital bill. It's not a big deal. He wanted to sell the story that much that media would come to the hospital and see him sitting in a legit hospital with a neck brace on as if he was just destroyed. I mean, that man back then, hospital bills, that was probably $50,000 he paid to stay in the hospital for 3 days and have, basically room service and everything. Something he did not have to do. He was able to go stay in some plush luxury suite and live it up like a king. But I mean, he lived the gimmick more than hell. I don't know if anybody's ever lived the gimmick that much.
But as far as, shoot versus work, you had no clue what was going on in that storyline.
Absolutely.
And for all you young wrestling fans out there that don't know the term shoot work, educate yourself.
Yeah, you got to look that one up. Pull out your Google machine and put in shoot wrestling, work wrestling. It'll teach you something, but what you won't see is a confusing question mark over Andy Kaufman's head when you see that. You didn't know which one he was doing.
You didn't know.
I don't think any of it was a work for Andy Kaufman. I think from the minute he woke up to the minute he went to bed was a shoot for that dude, brother.
Yeah. And there was some stories that came out eventually. Lawler told the story about the hotel room, them going back to the hotel room and talking it out and talking it over. And obviously we knew that, you knew it was a work at the end of the day, but still you're left with the question of there were some parts that couldn't shoot. I mean, you had no clue still.
Like Lawler said, he said, hey, when you hit me, he said, hit me. He said, don't throw one of them working punches. He said, you hit me like you would hit somebody that stole from you. And he said, I want it to look real. It has to look real. He was just so invested in the storytelling and the character that, again, he was literally willing to put his body on the line more than most wrestlers today would be willing to put their bodies on the line.
Very true.
For the story.
Very true. All right, so we'll segue into the next set of celebrities here that kind of were synonymous with an event that happened. And we're talking about Muhammad Ali, we're talking about Mr. T, and we're talking about Cyndi Lauper.
WrestleMania 1.
WrestleMania 1. So the event, to hear tell, is Vince kind of just put everything on the line.
They say he mortgaged his home.
Mortgaged his home.
It was all or nothing. More than all, he was all in. Let's put it like that.
He was the first.
Yeah, we're coming off of the All In pay-per-view. We're heading into All Out, and had WrestleMania 1 not been a success, Vince would have been all out. He'd have been ass out. So,
but you had some crazy amount of news coverage coming with this event because of the names. I mean, Muhammad Ali, biggest boxer to date when that went down.
That was 85? At that point, Muhammad Ali may have been the most recognizable athlete on the planet. I mean, regardless of boxing, regardless of what he was doing, at that point in time, he was probably the most recognizable human being on the planet as far as the sports world went.
So you had the most recognizable sports star. You had the most recognizable movie star at the time with Mr. T.
Yeah, I mean, and TV, because A-Team was the hottest thing on television at the time.
Then.
So, I mean, everybody with a TV had watched some A-Team, so, and everybody loved Mr. T. He was the lovable brute on the show. So,
and the biggest musician that was blowing up at the time was Cyndi Lauper.
Right. That was at the same time where MTV.
Golden era.
Exactly.
And Cyndi Lauper was blowing it up.
Exactly. MTV had just introduced itself. It was showing music videos. It was like, everybody was like, oh my God, this is great. We're about 2 years into that. Then all of a sudden Cyndi Lauper came, and I mean, she was a pop princess.
Yep.
And, WWE capitalized on it.
Who was the father in the music video?
Captain Lou Albano. History there.
Love that video, too. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Girls did just want to have fun.
But
yes,
that was so cool to see them, because even if you didn't know Hulk Hogan, even if you didn't know Roddy Piper, even if you didn't know Greg the Hammer Valentine, if you didn't know these people, you knew who these people were.
Yeah, you were introduced to them real quick, because now they were shoulder to shoulder with Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, and Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely.
Plus a whole lot of other, Lee Iacocca was at WrestleMania 1. There was a lot of other notable names there.
Liberace was there.
Liberace was there. Yeah, he did the dancing with the Vegas girls, and a lot of people were involved in the event. So they got a lot of eyes on WrestleMania 1, and it did nothing but great returns for him.
Talking about strapping a rocket on somebody.
There you go.
That was Vince strapping the rocket on the WWF at the time.
He put the WWF on the map that day, and they haven't fallen off since.
Yep. So we'll keep moving with the celebrities that we want to talk about, and football stars have made their way in and out of the ring at one, at points and times, and we won't go into the battle royal of the football stars.
WrestleMania 2 had, the Fridge and Jimbo Covert. There were a lot of guys in there. We'll never get all those names out.
But one of the biggest ones that kind of popped up was Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor had main evented a WrestleMania.
Evented a WrestleMania. Yep.
Up till that point, we had only ever seen Hulk Hogan main event WrestleMania in one way, shape, or form, and then a little bit of Bret Hart. But now you got Lawrence Taylor, LT. Fresh off a Hall of Fame football career. Fresh off of that Hall of Fame football career. Again, almost in that same vein of thought, he was one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet at that time.
And what a rub that was for Bam Bam.
Yeah, absolutely. At that point, Bam Bam hadn't even sniffed a main event.
No.
But the guys that were main event, so like Shawn Michaels was a main eventer. You can't put Shawn Michaels in there with a guy like LT.
No.
It's got to look competitive. You got a big brute LT. He's 300 pounds. He's out there tossing Shawn Michaels around with no skill. Yeah, Shawn could bump for it, but is it going to look good? Or but you put two big old horses in there and just tell them, look, y'all go in there and lay a beat down on each. Hey, That worked. That worked well.
As Big E says, big meaty men slapping meat.
There you go. They made it work. They found a way to make some magic in that. Now, was it catch as catch can? Was it?
Yeah, it was bold as you ugly for sure.
I was gonna say now it definitely wasn't an all-star matchup.
No.
Like, you're not gonna show that to your youngins and say, well, here's wrestling 101. But my goodness, as far as where the business was at the time, the WWE or WWF at the time was kind of in a flux. They weren't really mainstream anymore. They had lost Hulk Hogan. They had lost like the Ultimate Warrior, those big names they had. They were kind of in a transition period. So having a guy like LT bring a lot of eyes to your wrestling pay-per-view wasn't a bad thing.
Yep. Moving on here, one of the biggest ones that I remember just because it was so crucial to the Monday Night Wars.
I know where you're going with it. You're talking about when Pamela Anderson came in, right?
I remember that so vividly now that you talk about it. It brings a smile to my face.
Well, no, it couldn't have been her because you said the biggest one. And I mean, she
had the biggest two.
She had the biggest two at that time. So, yeah, no, we may have glossed over her. We'll get back to Pam. We'll never forget about Pam. Yeah, it always comes back to Pam one way or the other.
No, I'm talking about Iron Mike Tyson.
Oh, Iron Mike Tyson. My God. I mean, when he came into wrestling, he saved WWE. I mean, they were in trouble. When in 98, when Mike Tyson came in, WWE was in trouble. They were 2 years into the Monday Night Wars, and they weren't winning. They were not on the top end of the Monday Night Wars until Mike Tyson came in, and then he was must-watch TV. Mike was fresh out of jail. Mike had bitten the ears off. Mike had done a lot of stuff. So you wanted to see what Mike Tyson was going to do when he got in a wrestling ring, and then they pitted him against Stone Cold Steve Austin. What possible better way would you have to introduce the anti-establishment, anti-authority guy Steve Austin against the epitome of anti-establishment, anti-authority, and Mike Tyson. And then pit them against each other. It's like, at first you would think they'd be best friends, but
I thought for sure as the world when I saw Tyson shove Austin. I was just like, oh my God, it's going to go down. Like, here we go. It's going to be a slugfest. And I'm going to watch Stone Cold Steve Austin, my hero at the time. I was going to watch him get knocked out.
Yeah, I was going to say that wasn't going to be a slugfest.
No,
that was going to be some slugs, but there wouldn't have been no slugfest.
I mean, we've joked and we've talked about off air about Tyson was probably the most dangerous man in the world.
Yeah. Just anybody not named Ken Shamrock. I mean, that was Shamrock's gimmick, so Tyson couldn't steal his gimmick, but he damn sure could have earned it.
Punching power wise, I mean, the dude used to punch cinder block columns and make them shake. I mean, just crazy stuff. But definitely it was very cool to see him kind of do that turn there at the end. And it was very cool to see him involved. And
it was good to see him in there because he was a wrestling fan. Like you could see he enjoyed what he was doing. A lot of times when you get celebrities in wrestling, they just kind of come in, they do their bit, they kind of head out. Or as we would have seen with Mike Tyson 25 years later, you come in, you take a little nap. Then you go out. You cash your check and go out. But 98 Mike Tyson, not Sleepy Mike that we got later on in AEW, but Iron Mike Tyson in WWE in 98. I mean, he was so energized and so charged up to be part of the product that, you could feel the energy, bubbling off of him. As a fan, it's like, God, he's just like me as far as this goes.
Anything he was involved into, the rumble in the arena where they were, it bled through the TV.
Oh yeah,
it's like you were there, you could feel it.
Yeah, it was electric.
Absolutely.
Like I said, and there were a lot of TNT watchers that were flipping the channel over at that time. Whatever NWO was doing that night, that was gone. That was nobody remembers anything they did that night.
Speaking of NWO. We had a basketball star get involved with the NWO, and that was Dennis Rodman. The Worm.
He got in there at the height of his career. I mean, in the midst of 3 championships, he was an NWOite.
And then across the ring from him was the postman, Karl Malone.
Who he played in the finals the year, in 2 years in a row, he played, it was Dennis Rodman's Bulls and Karl Malone's Jazz, facing all, and then all of a sudden, right after, maybe a month after the NBA championship, these two guys are in a wrestling ring facing off it. Yep. You couldn't script that shit better than that. I mean, my goodness.
and Hogan and DDP,
They were in there.
They
but
carried it.
Yeah, because somebody had to wrestle. I mean, trying to watch. So I remember the Rodman and Karl Malone match, and as far as wrestling went, neither one of them had any skills in that.
No, there was
rebounds.
There was no wrestling there.
Rebounds and pick and roll. They teach you that all day. But as far as body slams and clotheslines, that wasn't their forte.
Let's get back to another boxer here with Floyd Money Mayweather.
Floyd Mayweather, man, do you remember little Floyd knocking out Big Show? I mean, and let's call a spade a spade. He knocked the hell out of him.
And legit broke his nose.
Yeah, he knocked the hell out of him. I mean, I remember Big Show's nose started pumping out blood, and all of a sudden Big Show got up and he looked like that wasn't fake no more.
No, he was going to squash that little dude.
And at that point, Mayweather was halfway in the back, but some of Mayweather's buddies were still hanging around in the ring out there.
Yeah, they didn't get the nicest of
no, yeah, they didn't get them working punches that they were probably supposed to go out there and throw. No. They were getting thrown around out there like new money.
But I will say this: WWE having their pulse on the sports landscape and showing Floyd Money Mayweather. I had lost touch with boxing by the time Floyd came along.
Yeah.
So when Floyd came along, I was looking like, who is this?
Yeah.
And because of what happened between him and the Big Show, I watched the rest of the undefeated run of Floyd Money Mayweather.
Yeah, a lot of people turned back into it. I kind of, I remembered his dad and things like that from the old day. Mm-hmm. So I kind of knew who he was. And, I knew he was undefeated, but undefeated against who, right?
Right.
Because I had no idea who he was fighting because I didn't know anything about his weight class of boxing at all, at all. But, yeah, I found myself tuning in more as his fights went on, like, well, let's see what's this Money with Mayweather character all about? What are they talking about? I just know Floyd Mayweather Jr. But then you start seeing, and then, that was way before social media came out. But, even today with the social media, you see this guy out there with 6 cars and, $200 million in his pocket or spread out across his dining room. And you're like, oh, that's what the Money Mayweather character is. But he cultivated that character in WWE.
So he was a character. And
Absolutely.
I will say this until I go to my grave. You want to bring the sport of boxing back? Couple that with the promo and the entrance of a wrestler.
Oh yeah,
and you got it. And I mean, they started.
Couple that with the promo and the entrance of a wrestler, you got MMA.
Yeah, but they started going down that road. Tyson Fury started kind of, but again, I fell out of touch with it again. And who brought me back into the world of boxing? Tyson Fury
back in there. But yeah, I mean, that is what had boxing picked up on that whole entertainment aspect of the thing, like WWE did. Boxing wouldn't have died the way it did. Boxing would have been MMA.
And I don't mind MMA. I don't mind the way that they do their press conferences. I don't mind the way they do the weigh-ins. I don't mind the guys talking shit before the match because that is in turn their promo. That is it. Yeah. And whether Dana White wants to admit it or not, that is stolen from the WWE.
100%. I mean, everything about his Ultimate Fighting and all that stuff, the reality show, all of that was taken from parts that WWE had done in the past.
And look, Dana, now you're all under one umbrella. It's okay if you admit
it. Yeah, you're TKO Sport. Okay. Right, go ahead and admit it. Say, I borrowed everything I needed to borrow. I mean, because your company's worth more than WWE now, so apparently you borrowed it the right way.
Well, speaking of borrowing, apparently they're getting ready to borrow a WWE superstar in Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, they might as well. They've already borrowed a WWE. They already borrowed a WWE superstar with Brock Lesnar. And they're basically leasing a WWE superstar in Conor McGregor.
He just ain't got there yet.
Yeah, he just ain't got there yet. But I mean, hell, he's been a WWE superstar since day one in MMA. So
absolutely,
at this point now, because we're all under the same roof, I guess you could just go ahead and say what you're thinking. But yeah, hell.
So because of the superstardom that Rousey achieved in our eyes, she is considered a celebrity that kind of crossed over into wrestling. Definitely came in with the clout. She left the world of MMA due to her loss, her first and only loss to Holly Holmes. And whenever she left the MMA, everybody was like, will she be back? And everybody was like, well, I don't know, Ronda's mentality, I don't know if she'll come back, blah, 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 blah.
She came back because she got her block knocked off again. So after she took that second loss, that was it, right? The MMA was they were far in the rearview mirror at that point.
But seeing her come over, the only thing that I'm just going to say it, we're going to move on. The 2 words that I can say about Ronda Rousey in the WWE, untapped potential.
Untapped potential, absolutely. But even though there was a lot left on the table with Ronda Rousey, she still got the women to something they never would have achieved without her there, and that was main event in a WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
I don't care how hot Becky Lynch got. I don't care how much they want to herald Charlotte Flair as the second coming of her dad. Hell, Rick never even main evented a WrestleMania before. So had not there been a Ronda Rousey on that card, there wouldn't have been a Charlotte Flair or a Becky Lynch in the main event.
Yep.
So that being said, she did more than what she was estimated to do by coming in. You know, they had to know when she came in, especially when she started saying she wanted to start a family and things like that. They had to know they hadn't struck gold. I mean, you know, they kind of ran into a little bit of fool's gold with Ronda Rousey, but the viewership that she brought to the product and the fact that she elevated the women that she elevated to that next level made it all worth it.
So let's talk about these next two guys. Let's put them in the same vein. Let's put Logan Paul and Bad Bunny. Let's put them in the same.
Running concurrent.
They're running concurrent.
Different in the fact that Bad Bunny's got a much more lucrative career outside of the WWE than Logan Paul does. Logan Paul kind of needs the WWE to stay where he's at. Bad Bunny far eclipsed anything that WWE could do eons ago.
But with these guys coming in, the way that they came in and the way that they've had matches,
Now, see, there's where there's
that
similar
is,
at.
That when first off, when they said Bad Bunny, I was like, who? Like,
because that ain't my genre.
Sorry, guys. In my 40s here, I'm out of touch with modern day music.
Yeah, so, that ain't my genre of music either. So I ain't know who he was either.
But you know, knowing the name and you know seeing how he came in and you see the match that he worked, and you're sitting there going, wait a minute, this dude just did a Canadian destroyer. Like, hold on, what just happened? And then you see Logan Paul. You see Logan Paul come in doing all these insane high flying moves, and you're going, wait a minute, I'm throwing back to Maven off Tough Enough. Like, at that point, I was fresh off of watching Snoop Dogg do a splash over on AEW, and I said, what the hell am I watching here? You know, and Snoop Dogg, he's been a fan of WWE. He's been around WWE for decades, so, I mean, you know, he's a fan, but... But the way these guys came in, though, and the reason why I referenced Maven is because we got to watch Maven come in from off the street to be a WWE superstar, and he did an on-par job. I'm not going to say he was the greatest superstar.
Well, he definitely wasn't that.
but
he was okay.
But the comparison is we watched this guy train, we watched him go through the process, and then we watched him hang with some of the top-level talent.
Yeah.
We saw Logan Paul and Bad Bunny do the exact same thing in an eighth of the time.
Yeah.
Like it was just incredible.
Now, they were definitely able to get one-on-one training, whereas
Right.
Maven was doing Tough Enough with a bunch of other rookies who, you know, kind of was what it was. But I think after the Tough Enough show was over, I think WWE was like, well, you know, let's do something with this guy. And then, you know, when he started matching up against the actual wrestlers that were out there at the time, they were kind of like, okay, we may have went the wrong path with this. But because Logan Paul and Bad Bunny brought so many more viewers than WWE had, they couldn't look at him and they couldn't look at them in that same vein. They had to at least look decent in the ring when they got out there. So they, you know, they gave them dedicated coaches. I mean, I think Shawn Michaels was working with Logan Paul. I think Damian Priest basically put a year of his career on hold to go work with Bad Bunny, but the investment paid off because they looked phenomenal in the ring. I mean, not to coin a phrase of AJ Styles here, but hey, they look damn good in there, you know, for what they were.
Logan Paul looked so good in the ring that Hunter booked him in a match with Roman Reigns.
Yeah, what was that? His third match ever, I think. You know,
that is crazy as hell that even happened.
Yeah, and then Bad Bunny, you know, obviously on his second match, you know, they were in Puerto Rico, so
he got a whole PLE to come to his home country.
Exactly, that's what I mean. You know, he had one match, and they said, you know what, if you're willing to help us with, and all of a sudden that turned into a a publicity dream for WWE. Because they put Bad Bunny's name attached to it, then ran it in Puerto Rico. And I mean, all of a sudden, that was the hottest thing going in wrestling. So,
one of the other ones that we got to talk about here, another sports star that kind of showed up was Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, yeah. Shaq came out. Shaq wrestled Cody, didn't he?
Wrestled Cody. Again, here we go back to those two words, untapped potential. Shaq and Big Show.
Remember when they squared up in the Royal Rumble a few years back?
We thought it was going to happen.
And we thought, WrestleMania was geared up to happen. Shaq had gotten in shape. Big Show got in shape. That would have been great.
Amazing.
It would have been horrible, but it also would have been. I mean,
you can't polish a turd.
No, let's call a spade on that way. It would have been horrible, and they had no possible chance of making it look good. But the spectacle of the whole thing just would have been amazing. I mean, just to put that on the marquee, have Shaquille O'Neal, probably again, and we've used this term already a few times, but it rings true. One of the most recognizable people on the planet. Wrestling a guy his size. That was Shaq's whole thing in basketball. There was never anybody his size. There was always guys that may be tall, but they were tall and lanky, or there may be guys that were heavy set, but they were shorter. They weren't big Shaq size. I mean, Big Show was almost the mirror image. They look like a Neapolitan box of ice cream wrapped up out there with the two of them in there. So you're looking at it like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, these two are almost twins here.
No, not the Neapolitan box.
Yeah, you gotta find a way to pop a guy here on the show. That's my job here, and I come to perform every week. But I mean, fact of the matter, those when those two guys squared up, almost equal in height, almost equal in size. You're like, man, this is going to be great. Again, it would have looked horrible, but just the spectacle of it would have been great.
Oh, it would have been amazing.
Somehow or another, much like Hogan and Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8, WWE just never found their way to get it done. And it's like, well, now it's shot. Then Shaq came into AEW while Big Show was there. They didn't even mention it. So I'm like, well, I guess that ship has sailed.
Yep.
Or sunk like the Titanic.
So the next three guys that we're going to mention, you may hear these names and go, huh? The celebrities? What are you talking about? Well, these three guys, The Rock, John Cena, and Dave Bautista.
There you go.
So
major movie stars. All of them have been in box office blockbusters.
So them stepping back into the ring, they're considered a celebrity.
Yeah. I mean, when they came back, so they were wrestlers turned celebrities turned wrestlers.
Yeah.
So, they went about it a more non-conventional way than a lot of the other celebrities we're talking about here. But, they brought the word celebrity, what is attached to that is you're bringing more eyes to the product. And let's face facts, when those guys came back in their later runs after their success in Hollywood, they brought fans that weren't fans the first go round.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of people that know The Rock's name more on his Hollywood career than ever would know it on his wrestling career. He was only in wrestling for 5 years?
Yeah.
So, he wasn't there long enough. He was there for a little bit longer than a cup of coffee, and then he spent the last 20 years in Hollywood. More fans know him as a Hollywood star than they do as a wrestler.
True.
Same thing with John Cena. More people knew, I don't know. More people may have known John Cena as a rapper than they did as a Hollywood star. So.
I think if you may ask anybody who John Cena is now, you may get, the dude that made the most, Make-A-Wish.
Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be that.
I mean, he's done so much over his career. It's hard to define him into one thing: celebrity, musician, philanthropist,
Nikki Bella X. I mean, that's huge. So,
John, what were you thinking?
John. I don't know. So if you ever watch their reality show, that Total Bellas, man, them girls are a handful. That's too much.
Maybe that's what he was thinking.
Yeah, he was probably like, you know what? I'm gonna tap right on out of this here. Let's just stop this before it goes.
Yeah, there's something there, but I'm gonna just leave it laying on the table.
All right. So let's get back into that Pamela Anderson conversation now. Remember Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy both coming out to escort the guys in WrestleMania 11?
I do.
Those were some interesting women there back in, what was that, 1994, the height of Baywatch. I think Singled Out, MTV. Remember Jenny McCarthy had that MTV show?
Which one walked out Shawn Michaels?
So that was originally supposed to be Pam because the Royal Rumble, Pam was supposed to escort the winner and Shawn won the match at Royal Rumble. And then they did a little thing with Pam and Shawn Michaels at the end of the Rumble. Well, Bruce Pritchard is told on his podcast between the Rumble and WrestleMania is when Pam and Tommy Lee got together. And I guess Tommy Lee had a little bit of thing about Pam and Shawn Michaels being together. So somehow or another that got flipped around, and then Pam escorted Diesel, and then Jenny McCarthy escorted Shawn Michaels, and everybody said, well, wait a minute, I thought it was, what the hell? So when they came out there, they started flipping them blonde locks around, and them V-neck tops were V'ing pretty damn low. So all of a sudden, nobody cared who was associated with who or where came with what. Or it's just like, let's see, 1994, I would have been 16. I ain't had no care about the storyline. They could have walked out there with Steve Lombardi and damn Barry Horowitz, and I would have been like, I am attached to this match for the rest of my life.
Wow, Barry Horowitz.
Yeah, it could have been slap your back or pat your back guy and the Brooklyn Brawler, and I would have been like, sign me up for a 30-minute match. And whoever wins, they get the girls. I'm here for it.
All right, we're going to have to wrangle this train back into the station because it's got way off track. But that's our discussion as far as celebrities that have we've seen grace the squared circle. Who was one that we forgot? Maybe you remember. Drop us a line on our social media platforms. Let us know who's a current celebrity you would like to see get in the ring. Maybe some action movie star.
There you go.
Jason Bourne.
Oh, there you go.
That would be a cool one to get in.
I could see that.
That would be cool. Jason Bourne and AJ Styles.
Oh, Vin Diesel. I'd like to see Vin Diesel and The Rock get in there.
We already saw that, didn't we?
No, I want to see him in the Rock's world.
In The Rock's world. All right. So thank you for listening to our show today. We appreciate you guys. And with that, we bid you adieu.
Peace.
Today's podcast was produced by SBP. You can find our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Also connect with us on our social media accounts. Search for The Bookers Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.